Everyone, what on earth is going on? I've seen this and I came across this tweet yesterday, and this is Build Back Better. What does building back better mean? And you've got Boris Johnson on the top left there with Build Back Better. Joe Biden's theme is Build Back Better. Canada's got Build Back Better branding everywhere, literally everywhere. And it's very regional, all the way up to federal, right? It's just everywhere. This is happening in places like Australia, New Zealand as well, and I've seen reports of other countries also adopting the same language. And well, Greg says, here's Greg, he does a lot of good research and deep dives, and he says, building back better. One, there's a planned coordinated effort to fast track a global agenda using COVID-19 as a very convenient means, and it's happening all over the world. I want to mention, remember when they did this big push to have an emergency called for the climate, a climate emergency, and like municipalities, and we went, friends of mine and myself went to the local meeting about this, and we didn't want them to call an emergency because we said, there's no emergency. I think that COVID-19 stood in for the emergency they wanted that environmental emergency to be. And this one, I think they think works better because people are more afraid of this than they are of climate change. But they're not above using climate change as another boogeyman to back this up, right? If you don't deal with COVID, climate change too, it's going to get you. Anyway, Greg does a deep dive. It's kind of hard to translate here because of the screenshots he uses. So I'll leave the link in the description. You can go through it yourself. It's very interesting. It takes twists and turns, and it goes in places that you don't expect. But he backs it up with his. He backs up his theory with a lot of screenshots and a lot of data, and you can find it. Just Google the article title and the website to verify. It's interesting. You should definitely check it out. And again, sorry, it's just beyond the scope of this video, but. Here's Aaron O'Toole using basically the same rhetoric. He says, Canada needs to build back stronger. Let's set up small businesses for recovery and success post-COVID-19. I believe we must ensure more Canadians aren't left behind. Many have been in Justin Trudeau's agenda. Are you with me? And again, it's the same. It's not exactly the same. It's not build back better, but it's close enough to be bending the knee, right? It's close enough to be in the same vein, in the same kind of track as all of that. And I think that is concerning because this is, the lines are different. It's not conservative. It's not fiscal management differences anymore. It's global governance versus national governance versus local governance, right? And the problem is we're swamped population-wise, and we have a huge amount of land and a lot of resources, right? So if we're governed globally, we don't have as much say over what happens in our country. And I don't think it will work out for Canadians or Canada. And I think that is a problem. And there are different schools of thoughts on that. But the fundamental split in politics used to be fiscal policy, and now it's governance. I think now it's governance of, and whether people think that we should have local, and that's nationalistic, or global, and that's UN globalist. And I think that O'Toole's use of this language signals strongly that he's a globalist. Same with Kenny, same with Ford, just based on Ford's behavior at this point in time. Here's an interesting article that is not getting as much Canadian press not getting as much as I think it probably should. Do you know the name Bronfman? Okay, Seagram's heiress, Claire Bronfman, sentenced to more than 6 years for role in NXIVM sex cult. I think it's weird that they use the V as the U, and they didn't want to use a vowel, but they've got the I in there, right? Like, I thought it was weird. Anyway, they're weird. It's a weird sex cult. Seagram's liquor heiress, Claire Bronfman, on Wednesday was slapped with a stiff sentence, stiff as in the alcoholic beverage, stiff sentence of more than 6 years behind bars for her role in the NXIVM sex slave cult. The 41-year-old's eyes widened as Brooklyn's federal court judge Nicholas G. Garofoulos, sorry, I forgot that wrong, announced her 81-month stint after he laced into her for an hour, saying she used her deep pockets to help silence the group's victims and critics. The Scion had used her incredible wealth and attempted to use her social status and connections not only to support NXIVM's work, but also as a means of intimidating, threatening, and exacting revenge upon individuals who dared to challenge its dogma, he said. Dressed in a pink shirt, billowy black pants, and a floral face mask, Bronfman, who had been under house arrest at her city luxury apartment and owns an island in Fiji, was immediately taken into custody by U.S. Marshals. Bronfman pleaded guilty last year to charges of conspiracy to conceal and harbor an illegal alien for financial gain and fraudulent use of identification, admitting she committed credit card fraud on behalf of cult leader and convicted sex trafficker Keith Rainier. But prosecutors have said Rainier, who had been who ran a master slave group within Nexium called DOS, where women were branded with his initials and forced to sleep with him, could not have committed the crimes without the help of Bronfman and her $210 million fortune. Now, why am I telling you all this? Why does this matter in a Canadian politics broadcast? Well, here's a Maclean's article, and here's that name again, right? Bronfman. The ties that bind the Liberals and the Bronfmans. The opposition has been questioning the Bronfman family's connections to the Liberal Party. It's been happening for 100 years. I'm not going to read all of this article. This goes through like the 1930s and Prohibition and the Bronfmans, Seagrams, dodging around that, as well as their dreams to get a Senate seat. And I'm going to go through those parts. But like, this is a long history between the Liberal Party and this family. And now one of the main parts of this family is in jail for being a part of a sex cult that used their wealth and power and social influence to intimidate and silence their critics. Remind you of anybody you know? And here's one more layer as well. This one's from 2017, but we'll show you. I'll read through this Maclean's article. This was from 2017 as well. The ties that bind the Liberals and the Bronfmans. The last time the Bronfman name was uttered in Parliament was last week when NDP MP Pierre-Luc Dussault stood in the House to ask whether Justin Trudeau had access to Revenue Canada files when he recently said that he was satisfied with the explanation of his friend, Liberal fundraiser Stephen Bronfman, about a business connection to an offshore trust. Quote, "I can assure my colleague that no one is interfering with agency audits," replied Diane Bouthier. Sorry, I forgot that wrong. "As long as I'm Minister of National Revenue, that will never happen." The question was one in a string of similar queries, all similarly answered since November 5th, when leaked documents in the so-called Paradise Papers raised questions about the Bronfmans' business dealings. I scroll down. "For almost 100 years, the Conservatives and other opposition politicians have periodically been standing in Parliament to attack the Bronfman family, accusing them of violating tax laws, while the Liberals cover for them and quietly take their money. It's a story of anti-Semitism, politics, and rot-gut whiskey, but mostly it's a story about money. Huge amounts of money. Nothing has changed." Nothing at all has changed. This is going back to the 30s. It says it all looked bad when King bowed to pressure and shut down the border liquor warehouses. The Bronfmans bought a fleet of schooners to ship Canadian liquor to the U.S. East Coast ports, offloading cases of rot gut into small boats just outside the 3-mile limit, in which was known as Rum Row. So they were running illegal alcohol into prohibition-area the United States, right? No problem. Just turn a blind eye. The Liberals, right? Back to this. The Bronfmans established a complicated ownership structure with a family trust at its heart. They eventually built the TD Centre in Toronto, owned the Montreal Canadiens and the Expos, funded worthy causes in Canada and Israel, and took their place among the world's super rich. Sam was thwarted, though, in the prize he sought, a Senate seat. In a vain attempt to make it happen, he donated $120,000 a year to the Liberals. I like how just casually we throw out lines that say, we have for sale Senate seats. All you have to do is give $120,000 a year to the Liberals, and then somebody from your family will get picked to be a senator. Here's this. Back to this. Quote, "As the treasury of Seagrams, it was my lot to distribute the party funds," Maxwell Henderson told Newman, "and thereby hangs my tail, because when you're donating the kind of money Mr. Sam was giving away, you expect something in return. Quid pro quo?" And didn't Blagojevich go to jail for that? "I got something golden here. It's golden." Right? Back to this. What he expected was to end up as a senator. That was his great goal. That prize eventually went to Leo Colbert, who Pierre Trudeau appointed in 1983. Right. Colbert, a key Bronfman executive, godfather to Stephen, was a self-described bagman for the Liberals, founder of the Laurier Club, selling access to Liberal leader John Turner for $1,000 a year. Didn't he just die? Colbert wrote in his memoir, "When the Liberals were in office under both Trudeau and Jean Chrétien, I would tell a prospective donor, I can guarantee you access in most cases to a cabinet minister. But once you get in the door, you're on your own." Nothing has changed. Right? Since Chrétien, it's the same thing. I can guarantee you access to Mr. Trudeau, but once you're in the room, he might have a squad of people dressed up as bodyguards around him, and he might be wearing a big bomb-proof jacket, right? So you might not be able to talk to him. He also might be being rude to somebody, saying, "Thanks for your donation." So, good luck. Here's Trudeau's chief fundraiser linked to Cayman Islands tax scheme. These people they're so pious, they should definitely be running the entire country's economy. How much money do we owe? In the early summer of 2015, Justin Trudeau was the star attraction at a private fundraiser in Montreal hosted by philanthropist and financier Stephen Bronfman. Bronfman, an heir to the Seagren family fortune and a close Trudeau family friend, was revenue chair of the Liberal Party. That day, according to news reports, the two men raised $250,000 in under 2 hours. Within weeks, the Liberals would launch their federal election campaign, sweeping to power on a real change platform that focused on the middle class and promised to tax the rich. Yep. There you go. So, and, you know, with the cousin of Stephen Bronfman, Claire Bronfman, in jail for 6 years, and you know, these shady tax dealings, there's no questions at all. Everybody's just very, very comfortable with all of this. Everybody's just fine with it. No problems. Okay, moving on into the real news. The reason I did those two sections was because yesterday was my Thanksgiving, and I thought that I didn't have enough tabs to do my usual show, and I was terribly wrong. So I just kind of put those together in my head this morning, and here's the rest of the news. So yesterday, Bob Rae, or this is October 9th, Bob Rae reminded China of what's going on in the world. This is good. I'm going to show you, 45 seconds of this. Here we go.
Of Madame Meng, who is under house arrest and limited in her movements because of an extradition treaty that Canada has with the United States pursuant to the rule of law in Canada. In response to this, the Chinese government arbitrarily arrested and detained two Canadian citizens, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, and they have been living in terrible conditions without consular access, without any humane treatment whatsoever in a Chinese prison. And I can say to my friend from China, when you say to a country of 35 million people that we are somehow bullying a nation of over 1 billion, one of the great superpowers of the world, and they have chosen to treat these two Canadian citizens in this way, this is something which we shall never forget.
You know, yeah, people are not happy with how this is all rolling out. Not happy at all. And people who are paying attention, right? Not happy at all. Here's Pierre Poilievre. It says, under the spreading chestnut tree, I sold you and you sold me. There lie they, and here lie we. George Orwell in 1984. And this is a 3-minute video that encapsulates the lengths to which the Liberals will go to not let the we documents see the light of day. I'm not going to play this video. Link is in the description. I highly recommend you go check it out. It's worth the 3 minutes. Share it. It's very interesting. And how do you get accountability? Yesterday, and in this video, Poilievre makes the case that it's like calling support for your cable company or your internet, and they say, oh, hold on, I'll pass you over to technical support. And then the technical support says, oh, no, sales has got to help you with that. And then you go back to sales, and then beep, it's a dead line, right? So it feels like nobody wants to help you. It feels kind of helpless. How do you solve this problem? I couldn't imagine being Pierre Poilievre, except that I've been in his exact position, kind of sitting there going, this is obviously a problem. And all of the people who should be pointing this obvious problem out and stopping it, and the obvious problem is in the mandate, we will stop obvious problem. You guys should be dealing with this, and they're not. So I've dealt with that with my school board. Mr. Poilievre has dealt with that with the government, right? I know they're vastly different scales, but my goodness, I understand the frustration and am as frustrated as he is. How do you even start to fight this? How do you start to fight this other than bringing down this government? There is no other way. Accountability for Trudeau. Oh, shucks. We'll get Barty Schagger to resign. That's the next one on the block. Like, really, that's the next move. That's the next move. If there's more heat, and there's not more heat because the we documents are gone. The trail's gone. We doesn't exist in Canada anymore. Gone. It's done. It's done. Everything that should have been done in August didn't get done, and they had time to get rid of everything they needed to get rid of. And now they forgot. I'm sorry, it was a little while ago. I can't reasonably remember. I forgot. Here's Spencer Fernando. He says, the elites want us scared, desperate, and unhealthy. The political elites have had half a year to adapt to the CCP virus. China virus. This isn't the beginning when it was new and confusing. The data is all in now. We know about social distancing, which is horseshit. We know about masks, which don't work, and washing our hands. That's the only thing. Wash your hands. Wash your hands before you eat. Wash your hands, right? So why do they keep pushing lockdowns as the only solution? Why have they apparently learned nothing? With the second wave approaching, all that elites offer is more restrictions and lockdowns and more destruction of our local businesses. Keep in mind, we're supposed to be a free country. And that means that once we've been provided with the information I mentioned above, we're supposed to be free to make our own choices going forward. Yeah, yep. Here's CTV News. Do you remember this? I thought this was an old poll. I thought this was like somebody reposting the same poll I saw in September, like 10th or something like that, so a month ago. But it says majority of Canadians support closing non-essential businesses during a second wave. Yeah, sure. Did you only poll government workers and teachers, or did you ask like random people? And how many did you poll? It's 1,000. 1,000 people. Oh, hold on, where is it? 1,000. Hold on. Let me highlight it here. There it is. The survey of 1,003 Canadians. I'm sure I could get 1,000 Canadians to say they strongly oppose the lockdown. Easily, no problem. And yet, that won't make news. But these 1,000 Canadians, they agree with CTV. And so, welcome to Being Headlines, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable. CFIB calls Ontario's decision to close restaurants, gyms, and fitness centers in Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa for second time this year a crushing blow to their COVID-19 recovery. Yes, it's a crushing blow. If you don't make any money in the first and second quarter of the year or the second and third quarter of the year, you're hoping that fourth quarter is going to be really good. Being shut down again is an absolute death knell. It's not like, oh, we hope they survive. The businesses aren't going to survive. It's not easy to do even one big shutdown like that. And a second one, why would they even continue, right? Ottawa Business Journal says, no longer making sense. Ottawa bar owners rip new provincial restrictions. I think the only way that you can deal with this is just open. Just talk to your friends, talk to your other business friends, and everybody on the street just open and say, fine us all. We'll see you in court. Fine us. Give us the hourly fine, give us the daily fine, whatever you want to do, fine us and shove it up your ass. Like, really, and excuse my French, but this is, at this point in time, there is no way to comply with these illegal, draconian orders. Doug Ford needs to wake up. Back to this. Hold on, I'll highlight some of this. Local bars and gym owners blasted the province move to impose new restrictions on their businesses Friday, saying they felt unfairly singled out as the Ontario government struggles to contain a second wave of COVID-19 infections. The province announced new measures for Ottawa, Toronto, and Peel region in an effort to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. I scrolled down. The province's decision didn't sit well with Dave Longbottom, owner of Centretown's Flora Hall Brewpub. They as much as admitted that the problem has been private gatherings, he told OBJ Friday afternoon. By closing us, it's inevitable that there will be more socializing at home. And when there's socializing at home, there's just de facto going to be looser, more risky scenario. The question I would ask is why hospitality, he said, adding it's inevitable that the forced closure will trigger more pub and restaurants owners to throw in the towel and shut their doors permanently. Why not Costco or Walmart? It seems to me that if they're going to make some sort of change like this, which is so significant in its impact, that there should be data provided to justify it, and there was none. It was a bit demoralizing because of the absence of rationale. Whatever measures are required to get this thing under control, I'm all in, but I'm not into random measures that are being implemented as a means to be seen as doing something. I think he nails it here, right? And I think this is interesting. He says, which is so significant in its impact that there should have been data to justify it, and there was none. I think that if he realizes there was no data and they made this move here, when he makes his comments about, why hospitality, it's clear that this is being spread in private gatherings. No, it's not. They have no data to back that up either. They're making it up. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Bullshit. Absolutely. They are, whoever's writing whatever they need to write to get Doug Ford to follow the lockdown plan. And I don't know why. It's happening. It's happening everywhere. It's not just happening here. It's happening everywhere. Western world. And we need to demand a stop to it. You need to demand it because there's no other way. There's no other way. Back to this. Ashley Laurie, CEO of Ottawa-based Freeform Fitness, says she was baffled by the province's failure to explain why it targeted certain businesses and not others. They're keeping the malls open, but they're closing down a place where your mental health is taken care of. I don't understand the logic behind it. It's no longer making sense. Laurie said her fitness chain is going above and beyond to prevent the spread of COVID-19, requiring clients at its 6 Ottawa locations to wear masks at all times and limiting the number of people in its gyms to about 4 at a time. Here we were being super extra cautious and they closed us down. She said, I'm a little frustrated. I don't know what the future holds. Yeah, there's no data to back up what they're doing. And it's not, appropriate to shut people down just to be seen as doing something, as Mr. Longbottom said. I was going to make a Harry Potter joke, but okay. Here's CTV News 11:30. They're reporting Canada's chief public health officer says the spread of COVID-19 seems to be shifting towards seniors, while the hardest hit provinces scramble to avoid the worst case scenario for the second wave. I remember really recently when they were talking about how it was under 40s, and I was going to get a bunch of tweets to show my point. If you Google it, there's a bunch of talk about how it's under 40s, but it was all in like May and June and a little bit in August, so I couldn't find more recent ones. But I'm sure I'd seen it on Twitter, but I just didn't have time this morning to go through and find it. But I think that it's interesting that the under 20s or the under 40s aren't dying, and so now they're shifting back to seniors. You know, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Here's JP Weesey, and he says, notice how Aaron O'Toole has been silent about the irrational economy destroying provincial lockdowns. I guess he's cool with it. Maxime Bernier is commenting. He says, Harvard epidemiologist Martin Kuldoff on the Great Barrington Declaration, which is anti-lockdown, and why lockdown harms public health. So Bernier is weighing in on anti-masking. Lockdowns. Anti-containment, not masking. I misspoke there. Apologies. Here is anti-mask and anti-lockdown protesters. I've heard the term anti-containment. Containment's a new one, but I think that we're going to have to watch that term. I think that's going to be a new speak term, containment, right? We're just containing you for a little while. Don't worry about it. Here's a bit of sample of the crowd. CBC sucks. Yeah. Interesting, right? Here's a similar protest in Dublin. Thousands of anti-mask and anti-lockdown protesters held large rally in Dublin despite restrictions and say they will do it again. Yeah, yep. Very interesting. This is the only way, and I don't think that protesting in this way in Canada works, right? But potentially in Ontario it might. It might in Ontario. We have a lot of the population is within a drive to Toronto. We might be able to protest that way. But again, I fear the difficulty with this is they use this kind of footage to discredit right-wing activists, and it doesn't matter how right you are. It doesn't matter, and I'm not talking like right-wing. I'm saying it doesn't matter how correct you are. It doesn't matter that here's the WHO's own advice, the WHO's own advice, right? Andrew Neil interviews Dr. David Nabarro, a WHO special envoy on COVID-19, and I wanted to give you the whole interview. So here is the whole interview. That's not him, and here is the short version of this interview, and here's what he says.
Gupta, I want to say it again. We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as a primary means of control of this virus. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted. But by and large, we'd rather not do it. Just look at what's happened to the tourism industry, for example, in the Caribbean or in the Pacific, because people aren't taking their holidays. Look what's happened to smallholder farmers all over the world because their markets have got dented. Look what's happening to poverty levels. It seems that we may well have a doubling of world poverty by next year. We may well have at least a doubling of child malnutrition because children are not getting meals at school and their parents in poor families are not able to afford it. This is a terrible, ghastly global catastrophe, actually. And so we really do appeal to all world leaders. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. Develop better systems for doing it. Work together and learn from each other. But remember, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer.
So I wanted to show you the whole interview, and again, it's in here. This is the standard TV interview. There it is, and it's There's multiple people on this interview, and here's even a news article just to back it up, just to drive the point home, because our leadership doesn't care, right? They're doing this anyway, right? This happened yesterday. This is Friday that it happened, the 10th. Today's 2 days ago, the 9th, and today's Sunday, right? and they're doing it. There's nothing we can do, but in order to maintain our freedoms, we need to speak up and say, these are our freedoms and we will maintain them. Thank you very much for your concern. get bent. Here it is. Who backflips on virus stance by condemning lockdowns? The World Health Organization has backflipped on its original COVID-19 stance after calling for world leaders to stop locking down their countries and economies. Dr. David Nabarro from the WHO appealed to world leaders yesterday, telling them to stop using lockdowns as your primary control method of the coronavirus. He also claimed that the only thing lockdowns achieved was poverty, with no mention of the potential lives saved. Lockdowns will have just one consequence that you must never ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer, he said. We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as the primary means of control of this virus, Dr. Nabarro told The Spectator. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted, but by and large, we'd rather not do it. Yeah, so why is that the main control? Why is that the main thing we're moving to instead of locking down, instead of protecting our vulnerable and continuing our economy? Why are we punishing restaurants and bars and health clubs? Doesn't make any kind of sense. Here's the last couple of stories for this morning. Air Canada is still looking to buy Air Transat despite the COVID-19 pandemic, but it is a significantly discounted price. We noticed that our balance books are significantly reduced, and so we're offering to buy you at a fraction of what we were going to buy you for before. Isn't that nice? Here's Conrad Black, and Conrad Black is doing an opinion piece. Justin Trudeau's coordinated assault on Canadian energy. The federal Liberals have launched an efficient and skillfully executed assault on Western Canada. Originally, I was attracted to this article because I thought it said Western culture, and I was like, yeah, really, definitely. And then I read it, and I thought, oh, okay, it's still a good article, but not as good as it could be. And this one is the last one is the Fraser Institute. Spend first and ask questions later. Not sustainable fiscal policy. Yeah, we're spending quite a lot of money. See the beginning of the show. How much are we in debt? And is this the best use of the money? Is this instead of supporting the economy starting back up, we're going to send money to the WHO to get rapid testing for a faulty test, one that's good 51 to 84% of the time? Come on. It's garbage. Why would you spend money on that? I wouldn't spend money on that. That's not... If I was on eBay and the test was like, yeah, we might be able to tell the pH of your soil, I'd probably not buy that pH tester, right? Like I'd be like, I'll skip it and wait till they get a better test. Especially when historically, if people are sick, they're told to stay home. And this whole thing's been overblown anyway. So I'm very, very tired of all of the COVID-19. I'm very, very tired of the bad spending. I'm very, very tired of the lack of accountability of our government. And there doesn't seem to be an end in sight, but that's nothing new. So happily I sit reporting on the news and the destruction of our country and the gleeful embrace that a lot of people on the left are just happy to ignore all of the problems, all of the smoke from these fires, and carry on believing that they're morally superior and somehow better than conservatives, right? And because we don't have conservatives in Canada. See Aaron O'Toole, right? Like the leader of the Conservative Party is not mentioning anything about how draconian and unnecessary these lockdowns are. He's not talking about we don't need a vaccine. He's not talking about aren't these numbers in line with the usual year? Aren't the deaths in line with the usual year? People die. Sorry, we're human. And that's kind of a side effect of being human. Like, why aren't the leaders talking about this? I know why the leaders aren't talking about this, but they should know that we're questioning this. They should know that this garbage, the policies they put forward that are basically carbon copies of each other, that say basically, we're probably going to do what they said that they're going to do, but we're going to do it in a way that is different because the public is pushing back against what they said they were going to do. That's how we've been governed over the last 20 years, 25 years, probably more. And sick of it. I'm sick of it because you don't really have a choice, right? They're going to do what they say they're going to do, regardless of whether you want them to or not, right? And the only way to stand up against this is the same way as what people are doing right now, right? The anti-masking lockdowns, anti-mask protest, anti-lockdown protest. I'm trying to find the tab, but it's not around. I don't know why. There it is. And I still don't think that that's the best way that Canadians can protest. I think that there's a much better way. I think that we need to find a better way to directly affect these people, to really tell the leadership that we see what's going on. Because social media goes so far and protests go so far, but it's all spun. It's all turned into that turned into that media machine, and then the majority of people see the CBC report, and that's the truth for them, right? So again, I think we need to do it smarter. I think this is a good start, especially for these local things, the masking, the lockdowns, the business closures. I think that that's the only way to do it. Open your businesses. There's strength in numbers, right? But having people out on the streets saying CBC sucks and these mandates don't make sense, that's good. I think we can do better. I think we need to figure out how we can do better, and I think we need to tell people how to do better. But I don't know. I don't have the answer yet. I'm working on it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, and SpeakingMoistly.co as well. And have a wonderful, wonderful